Blake Lively may have just met her match. Megyn Kelly has been on a mission to expose the full truth, and the evidence she's been bringing forward has seriously damaged Blake's credibility. It's looking like Blake's carefully built image is finally starting to crack under the pressure.
I will happily participate in releasing any further leaks that they have because the truth should be out there. What does she have to fear if she's telling the truth?
You can rest assured that based on the investigation we've done, the text messages we have, the receipts that'll go along with that complaint, she's dead in the water.
Megyn Kelly is working alongside her own legal team to bring forward hard evidence that suggests Blake has been twisting the truth from the very beginning. But the reasons behind Blake's behavior may go far beyond what anyone initially suspected, pointing to something far more calculated and self-serving than a simple dispute.
Blake Lively was no victim here. She was in control, she was in power, and she took over this film.
From reportedly using her close friend Taylor Swift and husband Ryan Reynolds to put pressure on Justin Baldoni, to threatening producers that she would pull her support from the film entirely if her over-the-top demands weren't met, Blake's behavior behind the scenes was anything but innocent.
She was such a brat that she wanted to control every scene, wanted to see all the dailies, wanted to do her own cut and did her own cut of the movie. All this is very unusual for just an actress in the film, even if she's the lead, and that she's now tried to turn this whole thing into a PR victory for her to get past what appears to be the fact that she is an egotistical.
As everything continues to unfold, it's becoming clear that this goes much deeper than a straightforward lawsuit. It looks like Blake may have had a very deliberate plan in place right from the beginning. Most people are already familiar with the basics. Blake sued Justin, accusing him of harassment and running a smear campaign against her. Justin then filed his own lawsuit, claiming Blake had done the exact same thing to him. But the full story runs much deeper than the headlines suggest. Before we get into the newly leaked evidence, we need to go back to where this all truly began, because it appears Blake's moves were calculated long before any of this became public. It actually starts way before this became a public feud. It traces back to the moment Blake's public image took a serious hit, and here's the thing, it had absolutely nothing to do with Justin Baldoni. It was her own attitude that slowly turned her fans against her. Here's how it happened. During the press tour for their film It Ends With Us, people started picking up on something off about Blake's energy in interviews. That curiosity led fans to dig up older interviews, and what they found left a lot of people genuinely uncomfortable.
As often happens when these stars drop a movie, people start digging around for other interviews of them, etc. And it was just sort of a course of, wow, like, she seems like kind of a jerk. Wow, she's like kind of a bully. She's rather mean.
So in an attempt to save her reputation, Blake went on the offensive and pointed the finger directly at Justin and his PR team, claiming they were behind the negative stories circulating about her. As part of her image recovery effort, Blake sat down for a New York Times piece, strategically shifting all the attention onto Justin, framing him as the villain and herself as the innocent party. The problem? There is now solid evidence suggesting that the New York Times selectively edited text messages and deliberately left out key details, all to make Justin look as bad as possible.
Literally removing text in between text and emojis to sort of make it sound worse.
But wait, doesn't this whole thing sound strangely familiar?
He has made herself into the new Amber Heard, and he is the new Johnny Depp.
Cast your mind back to 2018, when Amber Heard did almost the exact same thing to Johnny Depp, planting a damaging piece in the Sun newspaper that painted him as an abuser and herself as the victim. Interestingly, Amber even recently came out of the shadows to publicly show her support for Blake. But following Amber's playbook was a serious miscalculation on Blake's part, because we all remember just how badly that ended for Amber.
Now he's going full Johnny Depp on her to show that she was the bully, she was the one hurting him, and this guy who had, comparatively very little power was forced now to come out and tell the truth about Blake Lively.
Just like Amber, Blake's biggest error was underestimating the public. She assumed people would simply take her word for it, that fans wouldn't look too closely or think too critically. Because while she insists Justin's team is responsible for making her look bad in interviews, the reality is pretty straightforward. We have eyes. We can watch the interviews ourselves. And what we see is someone who comes across as dismissive and rude to the people interviewing her.
But he would, so he'd suddenly start filming my hands or my feet. But what was interesting is that to him in that moment, my hands were telling so much more of the story than my face. And I had to be so much more, it was sort of chicken or the egg. I don't know if I was more alive and awake as an actor because every part of me was up for grabs while he's filming. My mom will call 7 times in a row. She's that person. She's the one who thinks that like on time 6, you just like didn't see that she was calling. So she's just gonna keep calling.
We can also see how effortlessly she makes every conversation about herself, like the moment an interviewer asked her about her husband and she somehow steered the entire answer toward promoting her hair care brand instead.
And you turned around and you were just as supportive of Ryan. Yeah. What is it like to...
And my hair care company, Blake Brown, my goodness gracious. It's been crazy. It's been a crazy...
And perhaps most tellingly, we can see how completely out of touch she appears when it comes to the actual message of the film, and how little genuine sensitivity she seems to have toward the real experiences of people who have lived through what the movie portrays.
This movie is going to affect people, and they're going to want to tell you about their lives. So if someone understands the themes of this movie, comes across you in public, and they want to really talk to you, what's the best way for them to be able to talk to you about this? How would you recommend they go about it?
Like asking for like my address or my phone number or like my location share. Or I could just location share you, and then we could...
It is no surprise fans started walking away. Reactions online said it all. People calling her shallow, out of touch, and completely tone-deaf to the serious subject matter of the film. Viewers who once genuinely liked her found themselves unable to recognize the person showing up to these interviews. And just as Johnny Depp's legal team methodically dismantled Amber Heard's credibility in court, Justin Baldoni's attorney appears to be gearing up to do exactly the same to Blake, with the receipts to back it up.
Going to sue Blake Lively too?
Into oblivion, Megyn. Wait till you see this law.
And here is an interesting detail worth noting. Megyn Kelly's personal attorney is also representing Justin Baldoni in this case. But as we touched on at the very beginning, this was never just about Blake trying to protect her public image. Looking at everything laid out so far, it appears there may have been a much bigger agenda at play right from day one, and that agenda may have been to push Justin out and take full ownership of his film. The trail of text messages between Justin, Blake, the producers, and editors makes that case in a way that is very hard to ignore.
She used these allegations of sexual harassment and she used these allegations of bullying to try and leverage her position so she could be the de facto director.
Justin Baldoni, who is not just the lead actor but also the writer and director of the film, was reportedly blindsided when he discovered that Blake had quietly put together her own version of the movie without telling anyone. A director's cut that nobody was given access to. That alone speaks volumes.
For an executive producer to have a competing cut of a film is incredibly bizarre. But when she starts threatening people and saying, I'm not going to promote the film, I'm not going to do anything unless you use my cut, that's when it starts to be awfully incendiary.
And it doesn't stop there. Justin was equally shocked to find out that Blake's husband Ryan Reynolds had actually been involved in writing certain scenes for the film, something that was never discussed with Justin, never agreed upon, and frankly way outside the boundaries of what any actor's spouse should be doing on someone else's production.
The iconic rooftop scene in this movie, my husband actually wrote it. Nobody knows that, but you now.
And then there was the premiere. The director of the film, the man who wrote it, directed it, and starred in it, was pushed off to the side and spent the evening in the basement with his friends and family while Blake took center stage. At his own premiere.
It had been one of the most beautiful nights of my life, career-wise. I literally was sent to the basement with all my friends and family for over an hour because I wasn't allowed to be seen. She didn't want me anywhere near her or the rest of the cast.
Blake Lively was such a brat that her and Ryan Reynolds specifically requested during the premiere that they did not want him to attend.
All of this points to the same thing. Blake wanted full ownership of the film and all the attention that came with it. But the tide is beginning to turn. Things are looking increasingly difficult for Blake as Justin's legal team prepares to present a substantial amount of evidence against her.
Documents actually don't lie. People do. And it's important that everyone sees all of the documents that are involved in the case because there are people that have been destroyed as a result of the allegations that have been made so far in this case.
So here's a breakdown of some of the lies that are now being called out one by one. First up, the breastfeeding incident. Blake accused Justin of invading her privacy by showing up uninvited to her trailer while she was either undressed or breastfeeding her baby. It was framed as a deeply violating experience. But text messages that have since come to light tell a completely different story, in Blake's own words. Because it was Blake herself who invited Justin to her trailer while she was pumping milk. Her exact message read, "I'm just pumping in my trailer if you want to work out our lines." And Justin's response makes it clear he was not rushing over. He replied that he was eating with the crew and would head over when he was done. This wasn't Justin crossing a line. Blake set the terms herself and extended the invitation on her own.
She's just an example of how she loves to play the victim. And then the one about, oh, he burst in on me uninvited when I was breastfeeding my child. She says we should run lines together. He's like, anytime. And she's like, come on over. I'm breastfeeding the baby in the trailer, but come on over.
Second, the claim about inappropriate material. Blake accused Justin's close friend and lead producer Jamie Heath of exposing her to graphic and inappropriate content, framing it as a genuinely disturbing incident of harassment. What her lawsuit conveniently left out, however, was the full context. The film included a birthing scene as part of its script, and the video that Jamie showed Blake was a recording of his own wife giving birth. It was shared as a reference point for that scene. The lawsuit presented it as something sinister while leaving out the most important detail that completely changes the story.
It's one that, because so often we see births in movies and TV and they just look so fake. It's like a 3-month-old baby that comes out of, and I just wanted it to feel very real.
And as more details have come out, the footage in question was actually tasteful and artistic in nature, captured in a way that honored the experience of childbirth. There was nothing inappropriate or offensive about it whatsoever. The framing in Blake's lawsuit told a completely different story from reality.
He showed her a still shot from his wife's delivery of their child, which I've also seen. You can't see any R-rated parts at all. It's actually a really lovely artistic photo.
Another serious accusation Blake threw at Justin was that he made uncomfortable remarks about her weight and essentially shamed her body. Things escalated to the point where Ryan Reynolds personally called Justin to their penthouse and reportedly cursed him out over it. But Blake didn't stop at pulling Ryan into the situation. According to leaked messages, she also used Taylor Swift as a tool to pressure and intimidate Justin. In one particularly eyebrow-raising text, Blake compared herself to Khaleesi from Game of Thrones and referred to Ryan and Taylor as her dragons, a not-so-subtle threat about the power she had behind her.
He says we should run lines together. He's like, anytime. And she's like, come on over. I'm feeding the baby in the trailer, but come on over. Like, it's written there, black and white. She invited him in, and a lot of women are comfortable having someone around when they breastfeed, so it's not so weird, especially out in Hollywood, for him to assume, yeah, I guess she's fine with this because she did let him in. Ryan Reynolds comes off terribly. He had them over to their penthouse in New York, and Taylor Swift was believed to be there, according to this latest complaint. Not within the purview of an actress. And then after that, they have text messages in which Blake tells Justin, this is in the latest lawsuit, I know you've never watched Game of Thrones, but when you get around to watching it, you'll realize I'm Khaleesi and these are my dragons. And I have the best dragons in the business, right? Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift.
But here's the thing. Maybe Blake never made it to the end of Game of Thrones. Because if memory serves correctly, things did not exactly work out well for Khaleesi in the finale, did they?
I'm sorry. Blake Lively comparing herself to Khaleesi has to be one of the wildest cases of self-fulfilling prophecy I've seen to date. Like, everyone's making fun of her for saying that, but what's more Khaleesi than being a once-beloved public figure who stood to win it all and lost it in a fiery rage? It is giving twin. She's absolutely accurate. And just like in Game of Thrones, in the end, those dragons did not mean shh.
Anyway, back to the weight situation. Yes, Justin did reach out to Blake's personal trainer and asked about her weight. Blake found out and turned it into a major ordeal, which, by this point, is starting to look like a familiar pattern of blowing things out of context. The reality is that Justin has serious back problems, and there was a scene in the film that required him to physically lift Blake. Knowing her weight was not just reasonable, it was necessary to make sure neither of them got hurt during filming. It had absolutely nothing to do with her body or her appearance. And other leaked messages make Blake's accusation look even weaker. In his private conversations with Blake, Justin was nothing but supportive when she expressed insecurity about her body after giving birth. In one message, he wrote to her directly, "Anything you are insecure about, we will talk through and get creative together and make you comfortable. I just don't want you to stress about your body. It's the last thing you need." Now on to the fourth claim, the intimacy coordinator. Blake alleged in her lawsuit that no intimacy coordinator was ever used on set to oversee filming of the intimate scenes.
An intimacy coordinator's job is to be there to facilitate the filming of existing and agreed upon intimacy, okay? They're there to basically broker and manage consent and safety. That's what they're there.
According to her lawsuit, Blake specifically stated that there was no use of an intimacy coordinator to observe intimate scenes, and that Justin improvised physical contact that had never been rehearsed, discussed, or agreed upon, all without any coordinator present. The problem with that claim? It directly contradicts something Blake said herself in a recorded interview, where she confirmed that yes, an intimacy coordinator was in fact hired for the production.
Chemistry with Justin also was off the chart. And Blake, you always have a vision. So talk to me about how sometimes you were even the intimacy coordinator in some of those sexier scenes. Like we saw you.
That shouldn't be happening, by the way. I just want to be clear that you should not be the intimacy coordinator. You should definitely hire intimacy coordinators, which we did have.
So which version is actually true? And if you are still not fully convinced, take a look at the text messages between Blake and Justin on the subject. Justin sent her a message saying he had just hired a new intimacy coordinator and would set Blake up to meet her. Blake's response? I feel good. Can meet her when we start. That does not read like someone who had any concerns about whether an intimacy coordinator was involved. On top of that, Justin had spoken about Blake in multiple interviews before any of this went legal, openly praising how confidently she took charge during their intimate scenes. He was not trying to protect himself. He was genuinely complimentary.
Instances where I honestly just tried to get out of the way and let her take the lead. And especially when it came to intimacy and all of that, like she had a very clear vision and she was telling me what she thought would work and what she thought would be sexy.
Honestly, there were many instances on set where I just let the women figure it out. And I took a step back and kind of jumped in more as an actor in those scenes than even as a director.
And the cherry on top, there is actual footage of Blake on camera directing Justin herself, physically showing him how to pull her in and guiding him through a kissing scene. Their body language makes it pretty clear who is calling the shots in that moment. Now let's get into the fifth claim, a specific scene Blake highlighted in her lawsuit. Let's go through it point by point, because nearly every single claim she made about it ends up working against her. Blake stated that the scene was a slow dance filmed for a montage with no sound recorded. She then claimed Justin stepped out of character and spoke to her as himself rather than as his character. And she alleged that at one point he leaned in and dragged his lips from her ear down her neck while saying, "It smells so good." Here's where it falls apart. Blake said there was no sound, which would conveniently make it impossible to verify what was actually said or how anything was framed. But Justin's legal team released the actual footage from that scene, and it has sound. Full, clear audio that once again directly contradicts what Blake put in her lawsuit. Watch the clip yourself and decide, does Justin come across as someone behaving inappropriately, or does it look like Blake built a story around something completely ordinary? Worth noting too, Blake was also speaking out of character during that same scene. At one point, they were both casually talking about their spouses. And that moment where Justin says, "It smells good?" In full context, it is far more casual and innocent than how it was portrayed in the lawsuit.
I'm hear it on you today.
I'm probably getting a spray tan on you. Well, it's not bad. It's so bad.
And here is the detail that really seals it. Blake's lawsuit specifically stated, and this was her own wording, that nothing needed to be said because there was no sound in the scene. But there is footage of Blake herself, in that very scene, telling Justin that they should actually be talking during it. She contradicted her own lawsuit with her own words on camera.
We should be talking. More romantic if we're like dancing.
So yeah, take a moment to process all of that. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more dramatic, here comes the plot twist. Blake has now filed a gag order against Justin Baldoni and his attorney, attempting to block them from releasing any further text messages or evidence that could be used in his defense. Apparently, Justin is not supposed to be allowed to defend himself. But here is where it gets really interesting.
Now that she's had her shot against him and she's severely damaged him with that New York Times piece and this complaint, which she managed to get leaked, now she wants a complete gag order. Poor Blake. Why should Justin be able to release snippets to the media without the full context? That's what she said. That's what she did.
So what do you all make of everything we just walked through? When you look at it honestly, the question really comes down to this. Has Blake been constructing a false narrative from the beginning, playing the victim while the actual evidence tells a completely different story? And is that story now falling apart piece by piece, thanks to Justin's legal team and Megyn Kelly's attorney? Or is there still a side to this that we haven't fully seen yet? And is Blake genuinely a victim in all of this? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. And as always, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our coverage of the biggest stories in Hollywood.